Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, B&B fam. This podcast is sponsored to you by BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Is there something getting in the way of your happiness? I know when I traveled the world, I had many days where BetterHelp's worldwide service of licensed professional therapists could have helped me speak to someone no matter where I was in the world about whatever was happening with my life, and with zero judgment. With their ability to match me with a therapist that best fits me, I know my mental health would have been way better back then. Believe me, I needed it. But I'm here to share a way for you to take back control of your mental health by telling you about BetterHelp's awesome services they have for you to talk with a pro about your life through their app or just online. Whether it is a video session or some simple messaging, their team is here to help. I went to check out the app for myself just to see how easy it was to use, and after a series of questions, I was told I would be able to start matching with a therapist in under 48 hours. And what is super rad is that it's affordable and they even offer financial aid too. So come join the 2 million users that have already been helped and gain back control of your mental health by visiting betterhelp.com/backyards for 10% off your first month. Remember, BetterHelp is therapy done securely online. Don't forget to use the special code BACKYARDS and let BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, help you to start living a happier life today. And go.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies with BK.
That's me.
And I'm PK.
Woo.
It's so good to be back. It's a nice, lovely summer morning here.
It's beautiful out
in
today.
the Ville.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the mad, right? The mads. No, welcome. This is part 4 of BK's journey
into the music industry.
To a high place in the music industry. I wouldn't say it's
still
just
got plenty of room to grow.
No, we all do, though. I think we all could say that there's potential growth everywhere. Even if you're at the very, very top, you can still try to go a little bit higher. But I don't think it's always just higher in necessarily a monetary value or necessarily just a job value, but you could better your life by starting to help out or starting to do different things. So I think but I'm excited to wrap this today.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome journey listening to your story from small town girl in South Carolina all the way through Arizona, North Carolina,
South Carolina,
raise up,
Massachusetts.
take your shirt off, spin it around your head.
Like a helicopter? You trying to quote Petey Pablo?
That is the man.
It was close.
I got to mix him one song.
He's awesome.
When I worked with JT. He was all
in North Carolina, right?
In North Carolina. He was all the coolness that you thought he would be.
It does not surprise me.
I'm pretty sure the outfit he had on was from the early 90s when that song came out, because it was leather everywhere with those like, patches. Remember those? Like,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was wild.
I remember he always had like the bandana and stuff, and
still had it. Yeah. I think it was the same bandana from that.
Good for him.
No, it was amazing. North Carolina to South Carolina, to Massachusetts.
No, I was in South Carolina. I was born in North Carolina.
No, I know that. And then you went to Arizona, and then you came back
to South Carolina.
And then you went north
to Massachusetts. Then back to South Carolina.
Well, New York.
New
York.
South Carolina, Tennessee. I've been in Tennessee now for almost
a decade?
More than a decade. Yeah. Actually, like right around 11 years.
Wow. No,
it'll be like 11 years next week.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I moved here in 2011.
Holy shnikes.
Right?
That's amazing.
I know. Crazy.
So, and when we stopped off last episode, you were leaving.
I was leaving
your first management company, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was leaving TKO. I had interviewed for another management company called Roar that worked with Zach Brown Band at the time. And that process...
Is that spelled like
R-O-A-R.
Okay.
Yeah. And that process, I mean, it took, like a month or 6 weeks or something for me to hear back from them. I checked in a couple times, and they were going through a big growth period and, just even though they needed to fill the position, they had so much else going on that it wasn't urgent. So it took a long time to hear back from them. And so we left the last episode with a buddy of mine. His dad was a big booking agent here in town at the time and was leaving WME to go over to APA to help head up that office and grow the Nashville office of APA.
And for a lot of people that don't know what all these initials stand for, if you've ever seen the movie Austin Powers,
there are a lot of initials. Right? There are a lot of initials. Well, no, there's more than 3.
Well, no, but remember in the movie Austin Powers, they're all slapped against the wall when Dr. Evil hid his headquarters in the Hollywood sign. Remember? It was WME, CAA, all the agencies, and that's what they are. They're agencies, correct?
Right. So they're agencies, and basically what a booking agency does is they are what they're most known for, at least in the music industry, is they're in charge of representing an artist and getting them booked on shows. So they basically are the go-between. They're sort of like the salesperson on behalf of the artist, representing them to the owners of anything from a very small, club-size venue, all the way up to stadiums, to work with the owners of those venues, which are called the buyers, as well as the promoters who represent a lot of venues and stuff to help plan a tour or different things like that. They also do, they do more than that. You've got booking agents at these agencies who handle representing artists in deals for film and TV and stuff like that. So it kind of runs the gamut. But what they're most known for, at least in the situation we're talking about, is for booking shows. And I never wanted to be a booking agent, but like I had said last episode, I was ready to take the next step and go somewhere new and learn some more. Yeah. So even though I never wanted to be a booking agent, which I made very clear to the guy I interviewed with at APA, that, I want to end up back in management someday, but I'm looking to grow and would like to learn more about the booking side and stuff like that. And so it was crazy how it worked out. So he offered me the job to be his assistant at APA, and I accepted it. Because, I had followed up a couple times with Roar. They kept letting me know, they would at least respond hey, sorry, we don't have an answer yet. We would really love to hire you. We just can't commit right at this time. So I accept the job. I go back to work at TKO that day after doing that interview and accepting the position, and I get a call literally an hour after I accepted the job at APA offering me the job at Roar.
Oh my
and
God.
I was pretty devastated because it was a job at a management company, which is what I wanted to do. And I was talking to one of the heads of that management company on the phone when they offered me the job, and I was like, I can't believe this, but I literally just accepted a position at APA to go be an assistant over there. And he was like, well, have you signed any paperwork? Kind of wondering, can I get out of it?
Yeah.
And even though I could have, it just didn't. I thought about it for a minute and I was like, it just doesn't feel right to go back on my word that I just gave to
Which is everything.
Yeah. And, I'm sure that he would have found another assistant, no problem, and it would have been fine. But I decided to stick to my word and go to APA and figure it out. And I figured, if it's meant to be for me to end up at Roar or another management company, that opportunity is going to come along when it's supposed to happen. Apparently, I am supposed to go to APA because that's what I committed to.
Well, and you said this in the last episode when you were talking about the Citadel. One of the core values that you had, which, I think, I'm not saying a lot of people don't have it, but a lot of people could have more of it, is integrity. And part of that is, sure, did you want to go somewhere else? But did you already commit to it?
Yeah.
And I think that's good on you. I mean, that's hard.
Well, I mean, and at that point in my career, like being an assistant, who knows if it really would have damaged my reputation or not, but that was also a risk that I didn't want to take because wanting to be a manager, I needed to be known as being trustworthy and a person of my word who stuck to what I said and represented myself in a manner that would make artists comfortable with being represented by me.
Good on you.
So I started APA, and it was amazing. I can't even, I never wanted to be a booking agent. I still don't want to be a booking agent. But working at that company, I really kind of found my people. Just a great group of humans who were kind and good to each other and helpful. Some of the people that I had become friends with through Solid actually worked there. So they were really great about helping teach me the ways of all of the things. And there was a ton of stuff for me to learn. I mean, I said it in one of the earlier episodes, there's so much about the music industry that people don't know and that I didn't know. And there's so much that I still don't know.
Yeah.
But the booking world is so detailed and so intricate. I mean, you would think okay, so the booking agent talks to, let's say, the owner of a club, and the club owner is like, hi, I want to book Maggie Rose or whoever. And the agent's like, okay, well, this is what it costs to book Maggie Rose. Send me the paperwork. We'll sign it. Done.
No.
That is not anywhere close to that. There are so many different kinds of deals that you can have, like door deals, which are where you're basically getting paid a portion of the sale of tickets at the door. So you're not doing any advanced sales really. You may do some advanced sales. It's really all based on who's going to show up the night of the show. And you'll see a lot of those with artists that are just starting out because they don't have any ticket sales history for a buyer to basically gamble on, because that's what these buyers are doing.
100%.
They're gambling on whether or not an artist is going to be able to sell enough tickets to be worth the amount of money that they are guaranteeing the artist up front, that you will get paid this amount whether you sell one ticket or 100,000 tickets. So it's a pretty stressful situation on all ends throughout. So, I mean, you've got deals like that. You've got versus deals, which are I mean, I'm not even going to go into it because there's so much. But
and that's why certain promoters are known for putting on certain shows because they're good at certain things. Right. It's you don't have a promoter that cross-pollinates through different genres either.
Right. Well, and the promoter, if you're working with if you're working with a promoter, which a promoter, for example, would be like Live Nation or AEG or Messina Touring Group or something like that, they basically end up taking on the brunt of the gamble instead of the actual venue. And what they do is they have their own people in their team who are experts at marketing a show
100%.
And figuring out ticket prices and really know the nitty-gritty of what it takes to put on a successful show that's going to sell a lot of tickets, that's going to make everybody money, but also make the fans happy and feel like they got their money's worth of going there.
Wait, you're saying that an artist just doesn't wake up in the morning and say, let's go on tour next week?
No. This takes months and months and months and months of preparation.
It could take years on the big stuff because the big stuff you're not only gambling with whether or not a team isn't going to be using, not gambling, I should say, but you're not only looking at whether a team's going to be using the arena that day, but then you put yourself into a playoff situation where that arena might get swept up from underneath them.
Yeah.
But you have to do these talks years, sometimes in advance with the big stuff, because that's how much time they need to prepare for these. Like when I heard that for the first time, I was like, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense. But I never thought about it like that. I just really thought that it was like maybe a year. Sometimes these like promoters and booking agents are talking.
Sometimes it's a couple years in advance, especially if you're doing something that's like a world tour.
Yeah,
and you have to think of the logistics of getting
gear,
all of your gear from the United States to Germany or wherever. And, you've got to have tour buses while you're overseas, just like you would need them in North America.
Well, and snow days. Imagine I was on a major tour and it snowed and we had to go back to this venue 4 different times, and it wasn't a small venue, it was Madison Square Garden, and we would load in, but the city would close down the rail system or something catastrophic would happen. It'd be like, well, now we gotta book this. You can't just add it in, and people don't see that. They're like, well, why can't they just put it tomorrow?
Right, and that's, you bring
so talk about stressful with your agents.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. One of the things that you hear about a lot of times with fans and stuff, which I understand where they're coming from, is like, well, why are tickets to see this artist so expensive? Or why is it taking so long to reschedule a canceled date or something like that? And it's because of situations like that where the logistics are not just up to the artist or the artist and their management team or their other teams. There are so many other things that come into play that the artist and their team have absolutely no control over and are basically stuck waiting for somebody else with a city or a government or whatever to make a decision. And then there's this trickle down effect.
And then it gets to the promoter and the agent. And then
eventually it gets to the manager who talks to the artist. And then it has to go all the way back up that chain. Yeah. And also when it comes to ticket prices and things like that, what a lot of people don't realize is that the headlining artist, the main artist that you are paying to go see, pays for everything that has to do with that tour. So if you're wanting to go to a Blake Shelton tour and he has 3 other artists that are playing that show with him, he is paying each of those artists out of the money that he makes every show to play that show.
Yeah.
He is paying for the production, the sound, the lights, the staging, all the crew members, the security, every single piece that goes into putting on a concert for you to go and see.
The gasoline
is paid for by the artist.
The food.
So you may think oh, well, if they sell X amount of tickets at this ticket price, they're just pocketing all this money. They are making so much less than you actually think that they are making because they have to cover all of those expenses.
Yeah. No, for sure. So, I know we went on a little tangent there. But it was a good tangent because I do think that knowing that little detail about an agent, though, and who they talk to, and then it just goes up a chain. It's like we were saying the other day. You're playing a role of watching all these planets revolve around an artist, and that's one of these planets is being an agent. So it's kind of cool that you got to be an agent. So I learned so much while I was there, and there were so many different situations that I ended up getting randomly thrown into that I'd never been in before, and it was just a sink or swim moment. So the guy I'd been hired to work for, he was awesome. He ended up retiring fairly early into my job at APA. Okay.
So, and he represented a lot of clients. So you have 2 different kinds of booking agents, mainly. You have a territorial agent, and their responsibility is not to oversee a particular artist. They oversee the booking of all venues that are X capacity in a certain area of the country.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you'll have, when I was there, it was a smaller booking agency, not really small, but you had, let's say the country was divided into 5 sections, like Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, West, all that kind of stuff. And so you had an agent that represented that territory for club-size venues, and you had agents that represented that territory for theaters. Sometimes you would have a 3rd-tier agent who would represent that territory only for arenas and stadiums. So it just kind of depended.
Yeah.
So you have the territorial agents, and their job is to go get offers from the venues that they work with for artists that would play those size venues, and they bring those offers to what's called the responsible agent. And the responsible agent is the agent who is basically in charge of making sure that the artists that they are responsible for, that they represent, that the right offers are coming in for them with the right amount of money and any other like production requirements and things like that. And then the responsible agent is who takes the offers to the manager of the artist, and they discuss, and then the manager would discuss with the artist, and the manager will come back to the RA and say, okay, we'll take this one, not this one. We like this offer, but we need to change these things on it. And the RA then goes and talks to the territorial agent, and the territorial agent goes back to the buyer or the promoter. So it's this just crazy chain of how things like that work. So the guy that I was working for was a responsible agent for a bunch of clients, including like Charlie Daniels and stuff, who I just adored. So working with him was amazing because I really got to learn that side of the agency world. And one of the things that he did while I was there is he coordinated this concert series that was going to happen at this place called Discovery Park that's in Kentucky. It's this like really big, cool, like science adventure type of place. And they had decided they wanted to put on a summer concert series that local people could come to, like buy tickets, and it would all be outdoors. So everything had to be brought in: staging, concessions, sound and lights, everything. And they'd never put on a concert before. So they were very heavily relying on us to tell them not only like, this is what it's going to cost for you to bring in these artists, but here are the other things that you're really going to need.
Yeah.
So in that type of a situation, not only were we acting as the booking agents, we were also acting as the promoters.
Whoa.
So after the first show that we put on, so like I went down with my boss to this, we get the first show off the ground, everything is going great, and then he's no longer with the company after that. He ends up like retiring kind of out of nowhere. And I was the only person that had been a part of any of these conversations whatsoever. So all of a sudden...
And you've been there how long? At this point, a year, maybe? Under a year?
Probably, no,
a few months?
I think it had been a year.
Okay.
But I'd
still,
never been in a situation like this
pretty
before.
New.
So, yeah, super, super new. So all of a sudden, I am now the representative for the booking agency, and I'm the on-site promoter rep. So I am now having to coordinate with all of these artists' teams that we have booked for this concert series, and I am now running the concert series.
Oh, man.
And have no idea what I'm doing.
So you're running.
So I'm like, oh my gosh. And even crazier, the guy that had been hired to be the producer of this entire concert series, who is handling all of the logistics of like the staging and the sound and lights and things like that, gets fired at the same time.
That's awesome.
That my boss retires. So the two people in charge are all of a sudden not there anymore.
Oh, wow.
And this guy, Billy Gemmel, who I just adore, we became friends through this. He had done like some stuff like this. Like he'd done like security at some festivals and done audio and some stuff like that, and been like a production assistant. All of a sudden, he, who has never produced, this is basically like a multi-week music festival because we had like 5 acts playing each time.
Oh, wow.
He's in charge of the production side, and I'm in charge of the booking and promoting side. And we just banded together, and we were like, okay, I have a radio, you have a radio, we're going to figure this out. And we did. And it was such an incredible experience through the stress and everything of it all. So like we both traveled to Kentucky the next like 4 or 5 weeks of shows to put on all these shows and coordinate and work with everybody. And thankfully everything went really, really well for the most part. So crazy learning experience. But because of that, being put in situations like that while I was at APA really helped me get a leg up when I eventually got back into the management side. So I ended up sticking around at APA for another year. I worked with the president at the time of that Nashville office, Steve Lassiter, who you know as well. Amazing human. Just one of the best people I've ever met. He is just awesome. And agreed. And same thing with Chris Looney, who basically, when my boss retired, he took over being the responsible agent for quite a few of the artists that were there, including Maggie Rose, who I still work with and we adore to this day. And then Steve Lassiter took over most of the other ones, like Charlie Daniels and Black Hawk and Outlaws and different people like that. So I ended up working directly for Steve Lassiter and coordinating with Chris Looney and the other agents and kind of being this like floating agent / assisting Steve Lassiter as well. So by the time I actually left APA, I had 24 clients that I was working with.
Wow.
It was wild. I worked all the time. So, you know, everything is great. I love the people that I'm working with. Love the company. But I'm still not fulfilled.
But it's not management.
Because it's not management. It's not what I really want to do. And
because it is different. Even though you're in the music business.
Very different.
It's a different beast.
It is. It's very, very different.
Rewarding, I'm sure, and like you said, in multiple other ways.
For sure. But it was getting to the point where I was going to have to take the next step and become like a legit agent, like start working solely booking clubs or doing something like going through the agent training program and doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Or I was going to end up being in an assistant position forever. And I knew I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm too ambitious. But I also didn't really want to be a booking agent. So I was at this crossroads again, like I was when I was at Groove Mobile, trying to figure out how I was going to get my foot in the real door of the music industry. And all of a sudden, one day, I get, I think it was like a G-Chat message back when people still used Google Chat.
Whoa.
From my best friend Jacoby, who we talked about last episode, who works on Luke Bryan's management team. She's like super smart. She's amazing. She's, I don't know her exact title, but she's something like the director of marketing and like digital media strategy for that company. So she knew that I still wanted to be in management.
Yeah.
And at the time, the company that she works for, KP Entertainment, their offices, they rented office space in the Starstruck Entertainment building.
Oh, yes, they did. I totally forgot about them.
Yeah. And so Jacoby hits me up one day and she's like, "Are you still wanting to get back into management?" And I'm at work when she asks me this.
Are you roommates at the time?
We are roommates at the time.
Okay.
Yes. So we've been roommates for a while now at this point.
Because she could have waited to call it just see you at home, but
this was an urgent situation.
No, but that's what I mean, though. That's
yeah. So she reaches out and she's like, "Are you still wanting to get into management?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, you know I am." And she was like, "Okay, I literally just got a message, like a DM or whatever, from this girl Dana, who was the assistant at the time to Brandon Blackstock, who was a manager at Starstruck Management Group, which was in the same building that Jacoby's management group was in. And they, at the time, Starstruck managed Blake Shelton, Kelly Clarkson, Reba McEntire, etc. Huge management company. Yeah. And Dana hits her up and is like, "I just put in my 2 weeks notice." She was leaving to go work for Taylor Swift's publicist. Publicity is what she really wanted to be in. And she said, "Do you know anyone who would be able to handle this job?" And Jacoby was like, "I know the perfect person. Do not tell anybody else about this." So I'm the first person that finds out about this job opportunity, and they need somebody like right away.
Yeah.
So Jacoby's like, "I need you to send me your resume right away." I didn't even have an up-to-date resume. I mean, thankfully, it was only 2 years old, but I had to add all my experience at APA and all that stuff. So I get that over to her right away.
Which is a important thing here. Keep your resume up
keep it
to date. Especially if you're looking to move up in the world. That is like one little bit of advice that I think we all could...
100%. So she gets my resume over to Brandon and to Cliff, who is the CFO GM of the company.
Yeah.
And I end up getting a call for an interview. So I go in 2 days later to interview with Cliff. And I am super nervous, first of all, because like I had mentioned before, country wasn't the space that I had really planned on working in. I liked country music, but it wasn't the main genre of music that I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I obviously knew who Blake Shelton was, and that's who I was going to be working for, was for his manager.
Yeah.
Even though I knew who Blake Shelton was, I couldn't name you a song by him. If I heard his voice and somebody was like, this is Blake Shelton, I'd be like, oh, okay, I know a lot of his music.
Yeah.
But off the top of my head, I couldn't just rattle off this list. So on my way to the interview, which is the Starstruck office was only 8 minutes from the APA office, I am devouring as much Blake Shelton #1 songs as I possibly can, so that if they asked me about it, I could be like, oh yeah, I love Honeybee or whatever.
Austin.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that was by him at the time. So I'm going into this pretty blind. I hadn't had a lot of time to research or do anything. And I go, and it was such an interesting interview because, I was expecting them to be asking me questions about what I'd currently been doing, about my experience at TKO Artist Management and stuff like that. And Cliff was asking me more questions about do I know how many words I can type a minute? And I was just like, what? I have no idea. But I mean, I know that I can type really, really fast because when I was at TKO and I was TK's assistant, I was his computer. He didn't use a computer. He used his BlackBerry, and that was it. So he would call me first thing in the morning. I had to be at the office at a particular time at the desk, and I had full access to his email. And he would call and tell me good morning. He'd be like, okay, let's do it. And I would start reading him his emails, and he would dictate to me as quickly as I am talking now his response to each email, and I would have to type it out. And then when I first started, he would have me read it back to him to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
But once I'd been there for a couple weeks, it was okay. Hope you got everything that I said at 1,000,000 miles a minute because we're moving on.
Wow.
And then when we would hang up, I would go back through, fix any typos, and make everything look nice. And I would send his emails as him. It wasn't like I'm replying on behalf of TK.
No.
I was TK in that moment, sending those emails to all these people.
That's cool.
So I knew that I could keep up with somebody if that was what they were looking for.
Yeah.
But so I felt like the interview was going well, but when Cliff asked me that question towards the end of the interview, it kind of felt, I could feel a shift in how he viewed me as a potential candidate. So I felt like I'm going to lose this opportunity because I don't know the answer to how many words can I type a minute.
Yeah.
So he thanks me for interviewing. He tells me he's going to let me know if I've made it to the second round of interviews, at which point I would meet with Brandon, who would actually be my boss.
Yeah.
So I leave and I'm like, man, what am I going to do? I've got to convince these people that I am the person for this job because this is an amazing management company. I want to get back into management. It's the right time. I have to find a way to make this happen. So I go back to APA, sit down at my desk, close my office door, and Google typing tests. And I pull one up online, and I immediately take the typing test. And as soon as I find out how many words per minute I can type, I fire off an email to Cliff thanking him for the interview. And at the end of my thank you email, I was like, and by the way, I just took a typing test and I can type however many words a minute it was. It was pretty impressive at the time. And I guess because I did that, he decided I deserved a second interview. So I get the second interview. I meet with Brandon. Brandon is super cool guy, very laid back, super easygoing. I mean, we basically just kind of
I love Brandon too.
shot the shit for
I love
20 minutes or something.
Cliff, Brandon.
They're all awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I end up, thankfully, getting offered the job a day later, and I accept the position. And then when I went to tell Steve Lassiter and my people at APA that I was leaving, it was so hard. I mean, I cried like the whole time, which I felt super unprofessional for doing, but it was like, I love you guys. And this is so hard to leave because I absolutely love being here every day. I just know that I won't be happy here forever because it's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And they totally understood. And Steve was so sweet. He was like, I'm so excited for you and I'm so proud of you. And I know for a fact one day I'm going to see you get Manager of the Year award. And we're going to know that like we got to be a part of that path with you. And they have been so supportive of me ever since I have left.
Well, I was just about to say, you obviously left a good, not only like working relationship with them, but just a good person relationship with them, you know. And you're going back to your integrity. If you would have jumped ship to go somewhere because you thought that was your best decision, like you obviously would have missed out on so many like cool little details about knowing someone else's job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Situational awareness is like, this is
huge.
Situational awareness right here at its finest, because you did someone else's job for a moment in time and you learned something really cool. And so I think that's why Steve and Looney and all these people that you worked with, Heath and all these guys and girls, love you for that reason. So I applaud you for having that integrity.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad that I made that decision and that I stuck it out, because I wouldn't be where I am now without having been there. It made me such a more well-rounded manager, and I learned so much, and it made me and still makes me feel very confident when I am having conversations with major booking agents and stuff like that and promoters, and being able to know what they're talking about or ask questions and, you know, help follow up on things with them to make sure that like we're getting exactly what we need for the clients that we represent.
You know, one thing that I'm going to say that you learned there too is contracts. Like,
well, I was literally just about to go there.
Oh, okay.
But thank you for the segue.
You're
That's perfect. So now, I don't know like how much time we have left in this episode, but in the time that we have left in this episode, I'm now going to try to pack in 7+ years that I have been at Starstruck Management Group. So I start at Starstruck and love working with Brandon. He is awesome. And I meet Blake within my first couple of weeks there. He was in town doing something, and he ended up like hanging out in my office all day. And I'm just like, how am I going to get any work done?
This guy just wants to drink vodka with me all day.
He just wants to like hang out, which was, we like watched YouTube videos and just had a great time together, which was awesome. So it was great because I immediately bonded with my boss, with the main artist that I was helping to represent. And that really helped me feel comfortable as well, because at this point in my career, you know, like this is the most major artist I've worked with as far as like where he was in his career, and it was still growing and still is to this day. So it was a big step, and I really wanted to do well, and I also wanted to make sure that I was able to assert myself, not in a way that would make me seem like I was trying to like move too fast out of the assistant position or something like that, but so that I could show them like I can do a whole lot more than just handle your calendar and book your meetings and things like that. And that is what ended up happening. And it was kind of like this perfect storm of events where, so Brandon and his dad, Narvel, who is the president and owner and head manager of the company, they co-manage at the time. They co-managed Blake. And Narvel was also managing Reba and Kelly. And so Narvel had his own assistant, and I specifically only worked with Brandon on Blake. And Brandon, he mainly spearheaded Blake at the time, obviously because Narvel was so crazy busy with Kelly and Reba. And so I'm there for a couple of months, and all of a sudden, so Brandon, by the way, is also married to Kelly Clarkson at the time. So it ended up making sense with them being married, for Brandon to take over managing Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're together all the time. They can talk about work when they're together. It just was a good fit. So, but prior to that, Brandon had never managed a pop artist.
Yeah.
And I had never worked in pop up at this point, other than like my internships at Columbia. So he and I, all of a sudden, I've been there for like 2, maybe 3 months. And all of a sudden, not only are we still working on Blake, but now we're working on Kelly. And Kelly is in the middle of being out on a big arena tour and stuff like that. And that was really where I kind of got thrown into being able to show like, okay, I understand how to read show contracts and what to look for when it comes to like merchandising rates and how many comp tickets, which are like the free tickets that an artist gets that they can give to the guest list for the record label and all that kinds of stuff.
Radio and all the
stuff. All of those things. So I know what to look for and what to help negotiate with to like be the go-between to the agent. If Brandon's not able to talk to the agent, I'm able to properly represent what the artist needs and let them know, like, we have to change this. I need more of these tickets, less of these tickets, blah, 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 blah. So we really get thrown into the deep end when it comes to that. And there is so much going on with her at the time. So that was wild. And then they eliminate the position of Narvel's assistant. So now Narvel is relying on me for helping him also on Reba. So I am literally going all of a sudden from working on one global superstar to 3 in a matter of months, as well as being the only assistant in the entire building for the 2 managers of all of these clients. So at this point, I'm working, no joke, like 15 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week. I get up, I go work out, I go to work. As soon as I leave work, I would like pick up a pizza, come home, open a bottle of wine, and sit upstairs and work until midnight or whatever time, go to sleep, start all over the next day. Yeah, so...
But that's one of those stepping stones, you know, like... Though the assistant term gets thrown around a lot as like, they're just an assistant. It's a vital role, especially if you eventually want to move up in the world. Like any place, you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And that wherever that place may be, it will be an unfortunately hard climb out of that little role for a while.
Right.
So, and that was your climb, though. That was 17-hour days, the bottle of wine, the no sleep.
And it was just, thankfully, I was at a time in my life and an age where I was able to just hustle and grind it out.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I lived for it.
Yeah.
It was awesome because I was finally getting to do what I'd been dreaming of doing at a major management company. I was not only working in country, I was also working in pop now. So I was really getting to learn so much and network so much with all different kinds of people across the industry. And on top of that, Blake obviously is on The Voice.
Yeah.
So for the first time now, I am also working with TV. And Blake was also starring in movies. Like he did The Ridiculous Six, that Netflix movie with Adam Sandler, which was one of the first major movie productions Netflix ever put out as like one of their own movies. So, and Reba's doing voiceovers for like Land Before Time movies, and then Kelly and Blake are doing voiceovers for kids movies, like Blake's doing Angry Birds, and then Ugly Dolls comes, and so it's just like one thing after another. So, I mean, I am just like treading water, barely learning all of these things, but really enjoying getting to learn all of those things. And then my experience having to do that Discovery Park concert series actually really came into play. And it's so funny how, looking back on this now, like, God obviously had a plan. Because if I hadn't gone to APA and ended up having to basically oversee that concert series, I wouldn't have had any idea how to oversee a major arena show that we had to plan for Kelly, because Brandon's learning all of this also at the same time.
Yeah.
So Kelly, she had done it 1 year before, and it was called the Miracle on Broadway concert.
Okay.
And it's held at Bridgestone Arena, which is like 17,000 seats or something, I believe.
I don't know.
Something like that. So
most arenas are from 13 to 17.
It's somewhere around there. So a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Let's just say a lot of people. So it's this charity event, basically, where she would ask other artists to come and perform like 1 or 2 songs with her band for free. So that all of the proceeds, once like expenses were paid, because you have to like pay the arena and you have to like pay the crew and staging and stuff like that. But we even worked with the staging company, the sound and lights companies, to try and get like some things donated, like maybe they can donate the equipment. Obviously, you still have to pay the people that are working, but to be able to donate as much money as possible to these different charities that she would highlight, like children's hospitals and different really cool things.
That is cool.
So pretty late in the game, the decision is made. We're going to do a Miracle on Broadway concert this year in 2015. And it's always held around Christmas time. So the songs that they're doing are usually their Christmas covers. So Kelly's band not only has to learn all these Christmas covers, and then rehearsals have to happen with all of these artists like Jason Aldean. And like 1 year she had like Dolly Parton, and I think she had like Garth and Trisha and stuff like that. And so it's...
So all small artists.
Yeah, small artists. So you're working with some major artists who have very important teams of people around them who know what they're doing. And Brandon and I are just like, all right, we're going to figure this out. You know, like we are running an arena show for our artists. So it has to look really good, because not only are we representing our artist, but we're also helping represent all of these other acts that she has invited to be on this bill to perform for people, to raise money for these charities. And you want to raise a lot of money for the charities because it's a good cause. So it was wild. Super intense. We also decided, we're going to do a VIP experience. Let's just add one more thing to the plate. So
we have a wine tasting outside next.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was wild. So thankfully, having the experience from running that concert series at Discovery Park, that really helped me in, I mean, I had to spearhead this whole thing, you know, because Brandon's busy representing Kelly.
Yeah.
But I have to put together all of the nitty-gritty details. So it's at this point where, even though my title was still assistant, I was really moving into more day-to-day manager work, because I'm now facilitating every single detail with the production manager, with the promoter, which was Live Nation, working with the promoter and the arena, working with the VIP experience company, CID, which I'd never had to deal with doing anything VIP experience before, which is a whole nother layer of crazy. So it was wild.
Merch. Everything. Coordinating
with every artist management team of every artist that's been invited to play the show. So I did all of those things.
It's awesome.
It was, I mean, it makes me tired just thinking about all of it. It was so crazy. I was worn out. So in the midst of putting all of this on, was it 2015 or 2016? I can't remember. That might have been 2016.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look. Either way, regardless. So maybe I've been at Starstruck for a year at this point. But still, absolute madness doing all of these things. In the midst of all of this, I mean, I am like drowning at this point in work. And even working the hours that I was working, there was no way I was going to be able to keep up. And I was starting to get concerned that like something is going to fall through the cracks. Yeah. And I'm such a perfectionist. I like can't let that happen, but I physically cannot stay awake enough hours in the day to be able to make all of this happen. So for the first time ever, I end up getting permission to hire myself an assistant.
Yeah.
Which was much needed and amazing. And so that was when I ended up actually having interviews for the first time, and I'm like looking for people to potentially hire. And that was just a whole nother crazy experience, which trying to hire somebody is another full-time job because you have to like put the job description out there, and then you have to field all the resumes and decide who you actually want to interview, set up all the interviews, do the interviews, figure out who you want to interview a second time. I mean, just all of those things on top of everything else
that's what
was going on.
Well, that's what makes a great boss is because they've also been in positions where they feel this, and so they know that the weight of the world can't go on one person because something will get slipped by or something will happen. And that's an important, always a very important thing to think about is how can you delegate other tasks to your employees in a very mindful and professional way so then everyone is getting a piece. Some people might actually have to do more, but that's the nature of the game, though.
Right.
And as you move up, then you get to get more people underneath you, which then help you. And part of that hiring process is hard because people just assume, oh, well, all I'm doing is answering emails or opening letters. And it's like,
so
no,
much more.
you're not just getting coffee either. You know, it is a very detailed thing. And when I was like at an SE or whatever, I used to always try to explain that to the younger guys, like, hey, you know, don't try to do everything. If you can have someone help you, that's the best way.
Right.
And so, like, you seeing that is awesome that you're starting. I can just see your brain starting to get even more knowledge.
So my brain is like exploding with knowledge at this point. And you make a good point. You know, like I've highlighted a couple of the things that I was having to do, but like there are probably 50 more things on a daily basis that I was also having to be in charge of and deal with. Well,
and here's one thing that I'm going to say. And a lot of people are like, man, I want that CEO job or I want that president job because I could do it better. What people don't realize is that the conversations that the reason why they have an assistant that goes and gets them lunch is because they're potentially in a meeting that is so hard because they're about to potentially lay people off or they're about to have to, whatever high decision they're about to do is going to change multiple people's lives. And that's a hard thing. And people continually never put that into the ballgame when they think of, I want to do that job.
Right.
Do you have the thick enough skin to sit in a room and tell someone no?
Right.
And that is hard. And that's why you have an assistant to go I don't have time to go get a sandwich. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, or in addition to that, like one of the things that we have to do besides, you know, managing your boss's calendar and stuff like that is we have these like route sheets and calendars that we have to manage for each artist.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have all of the details, not only on the manager's calendar so that they know what's going on when they talk to the artist, you've also got to have it on the artist's calendar so that they're prepared and they know what's happening. And so it's the detail that is required in being an assistant and in being a day-to-day and in being a manager even is just unbelievable. And I think one of the key things that people don't realize is that you've got to have humility to be good at this job.
Yeah.
Because you have to be not only aware of, but also completely okay with the fact that no job is ever above you, no matter what position you are in.
Yeah.
The better job you are doing as an assistant or as a day-to-day or as a manager is making somebody else's life run more smoothly, which in turn is going to make your life run more smoothly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So there was a lot of that I was learning and coming to terms with because I obviously really want to be a manager and I want to move forward. And I know that I have the drive and the capability of doing some of those things, but I still had so much to learn as far as humility and responsibility and things like that go. So my goal one day is to be made a partner at Starstruck, and to maybe eventually one day, if Narvel ever retires, which I honestly don't know if he ever will. I think I'm going to find him at his desk one day, and it's just going to be like, oh my gosh, hello, are you alive?
Yeah.
Like, he works so hard, which is really inspirational for me.
100%.
And he's super passionate about what he does, which is awesome to see. He's been such an awesome mentor to me, which is what I was really looking for.
I was just about to say, just the stories that he's shared with you at this point. I guess you could say they're not that, like, they're the most valuable thing in the world, because he's giving you these tidbits into things that have humbled him, probably.
For sure, 100%. And I see him on a regular basis do things that you would not expect a person of his position and status to do, but he's always willing to do whatever he needs to do to make something happen.
Yeah. Well, you just said it earlier about him making someone's life easier.
Yeah.
He's making Blake's life easier.
Yeah, and being grateful to the people who are helping you do that.
100%.
So I went off on a little tangent there again.
That's the whole point
it
of
happens.
this. That's the whole point of this. Though. I think that's the beauty behind these things, like stories like this, is because it's so hard to remember every tiny detail that got you there. But when you start to, like, when you jump forward a little bit, then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, well, let me tell you this. So So don't feel bad.
So I guess to try and jump back into, like, the timeline of things. So I end up hiring an assistant. She's amazing. She was actually with us for 5 years. She just left recently and moved on into a marketing company, and we're so excited of her and proud of her, which is just amazing. But thankfully, once she started working with us, so I've made it through hiring someone. Now I have the full-time job of training that person so that I can pass off responsibilities to them, so that I can free myself up for all of the other responsibilities I have. So I was going through a lot of growing pains my first 2 to 3 years that I was there. And on top of everything that's going on with our artists' careers, there are also things going on in their personal lives that end up affecting what's going on with us. I mean, Blake, at the time when I started working there, was married to Miranda. They end up going through a divorce. That's a whole nother aspect that, as a management company, you end up involved in. And then, in addition to that happening, then my boss, Narvel, who was married to Reba, they end up getting a divorce. So all that goes on, and we're still managing Reba at the time for quite a while after that. Eventually, she ends up going to another management company, and so now we're just managing Blake and Kelly. But now we've started an artist development program. Oh my gosh. So we decide, like, well, Blake and Kelly aren't necessarily going to want to do this forever. You have to start to think ahead.
Of course.
Who's going to be the next big thing? Because we need to keep the doors open. We need to keep paying people's salaries and stuff like that. So we start working with artists who are, in a lot of times, just starting out. They don't have a publishing deal. They don't have a record label. They don't even have a booking agent. All they have is us. So now we're trying to figure out how to be those things for them, how to distribute the music that they're writing and make it available on Spotify and Apple Music and all that kind of stuff.
Let's add in not only the fact that nowadays it's changing over from CDs and radio to streaming and...
Oh my gosh, it was wild. And
subscription platforms now.
And Narvel and Brandon, as the two main managers, they are so busy doing what they need to do for Blake and Kelly that even though they may be some sort of a part of these other artists' careers, the amount of work it takes to manage basically like a baby act like that is unreal because you're not only managing them, you are representing them in every other way.
Yeah.
You're figuring out, what video directors do I need to work with? We've got to shoot a music video if we're going to put this song out, or they don't have a booking agent, so how are we going to get them shows? Or how are we going to get them to a level to where they're going to be appealing enough for a booking agency to want to bring them on? Or, man, they're really starting to write great songs. We really need to find a representative for them to pitch these songs to other artists if they're not going to keep the songs for themselves. So all of these things you are doing as their manager because they don't have those other representatives yet, because they're not at the point in their career where they are far enough along to have those other people want to work with them yet.
And that's probably one of the harder parts of the music industry, is getting someone to be noticed.
Well, think about it. You are working for them for free.
Yeah.
And not just until they start to make money, because eventually you get these artists to start making some money, but they're not making millions of dollars. They're making a couple $100 to play this show. Or, hey, they had a song that actually broke 1 million streams. They might have made $100 or something off of that.
44 cents.
And you're not, this is their main job.
Yeah.
So you're not going to take that hard-earned money away from them, even though you are working like crazy to make that happen for them. So until an artist makes it to a certain point where they are comfortably making enough money to be able to support themselves and their significant other, their kids, who knows, you are working for free with the hope that one day they break out and make it into that big superstar moment where they're making enough money that now all your hard work
gets paid off.
Well,
and two, when you make it to that superstar, because a lot of people only ever see the superstardom. They never see the hard work up into the superstardom. And that's what you're talking about right now, is that in-between moment from, I'm going to be an artist, okay, here we go. Up until the point where, because when you become a superstar, people come looking for you now.
Right.
You don't have to go look for anyone.
Exactly.
And that's the difference in a lot of these people.
That's when you have the power of saying no,
and
versus everybody else saying no to you.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about that, because that changes your life. That changes a lot of people's lives. That changes your whole... That's exactly what you're building when you talk about artist development.
Yeah.
That is... The goal is to get people to come to you and you to stop going to them, right?
Exactly. And the thing is that management companies didn't used to do that. They were not the main proponent of artist development. Record labels used to do that. That's what like A&R and stuff used to really be all about. The record labels were out there going and finding new artists and spending the money to help them figure out how to write music or what type of artist they wanted to be, or getting them to work with different producers to really find that right sound. There's so much that has to go into creating a song or a record before anybody else ever actually hears it, before it ever actually gets released. Record labels don't do that anymore. When Napster and illegal downloading and payola and all of that hit, the amount of money that disappeared from record labels, it hurts the artists trying to make it and trying to get developed the most, because there's no money to do that anymore. These record labels are just trying to stay afloat to keep the artists that are actually making them money popular. So record labels don't do that anymore. Booking agencies, you've always got club agents and assistants and stuff going out and going to all these shows all the time, trying to figure out before somebody else figures out who's going to be the next big thing. Who am I going to be able to pitch to play shows at these venues and stuff like that. So booking agencies, they're looking for who's going to be able to grow in the live performance side. But a booking agent, that company isn't spending money on honing the artist's overall skills and helping them to become an artist. So now it falls on the management companies, which was a new thing. So we've started this artist development program. Guess who is the only day-to-day at Starstruck Management? Me. So now not only am I still basically doing day-to-day responsibilities for Blake and Kelly and still working every day nonstop with Brandon and Narvel, Alyssa, who I had hired to be my assistant, has taken over some of the responsibilities of assistant things for them.
Mm-hmm.
But now I am really basically managing on a daily basis these artists in development.
Yeah.
And our artist development program, department, whatever you want to call it, grew really quickly.
Yeah, it did.
We went from like 2 to all of a sudden, I mean,
7?
at one point, yeah, we had 7. And at one point, I was doing the day-to-day on at least 4 of them.
Yeah.
In addition to continuing to work on Blake and Kelly and being like the daily point person for all of their things. So even though I had Alyssa, I was like, we need somebody else. Like, there's no way that we can continue to do all of this and do right by each of the artists that we represent, and not just the ones that are making us all of the money to keep the doors open and therefore be able to work with these other artists.
But you still have to put them first because
they keep the doors open.
Keeping the doors open.
So we went through a lot of growing pains for a long time. And there were a lot of like baptized by fire type of moments. But I'm so grateful for those moments because even though it was so hard, I've learned so much. And now it's like second nature to know like, oh, I need to call this person because we're going to make this happen. This is the type of budget that we're going to need. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, down
the Rolodex
line
is starting to get filled
in
a way. And I know that being through a lot of that, not from the start, but I saw you go through a lot of it. And one of the things that really attracted me to you was your drive and your motivation, You were kind of me in a way, but a nicer me. But now I see it because we've had the hard talks. You know, there was times where you were like, "Oh, this is just killing me," and da 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 da. And I want this. I want this.
Give me the title. Give me the pay bump.
We all want something, but it is time versus your knowledge in a way, in many things, and that time, knowledge. That's that 10,000 hours, 10 years thing that we always talk about.
100%. And even when you think that you know enough, certainly not everything, but that you know enough to be able to be doing X, you still don't know.
No.
You still don't know. I've been there for 7 years now, and I know so much more than when I started. I know so much more today than I knew a month ago. I was in a meeting with my boss, Narvel, yesterday. And even though I was basically running the meeting and he was letting me, I mean, not letting me, but like I was running the meeting. He was there to be a part of the meeting, but I was really spearheading everything. He even blew my mind yesterday with questions and ideas that he had because he has been in this business for longer than I have been alive. So it's like, just because I have all of this ambition and now I have a good amount of knowledge and experience and connections and contacts and all of those things, I still have so much to learn and will always have so much to learn, which is why...
Humble.
Yes, being humble and being reminded of what you know and what you don't know sometimes, even if it's a hard pill to swallow, is so important. And it's also important, though, at the same time, to be able to be in an environment that does foster your growth.
100%.
And isn't threatened by your growth.
No.
You know, values that. And that, for me, you know, there have been opportunities where I could have jumped ship and gone and made more money and had a different title and things like that. I have not done that because Starstruck for me has become a very special place. It has become a place for me where I found what I was looking for in a mentor.
Yeah.
in someone who is not afraid to tell me no in the right situation where I need to be told no, but also is totally comfortable with and is confident enough in me to allow me to really spread my wings and fly. And it's because Narvel mentors me in that way that I am so confident in what I do, and that I'm not afraid to go into these meetings by myself or to really basically manage some of these artists without him being involved at all, except at a very top level.
Yeah.
And know I am doing the right thing, even if it's taking longer than we would want to, or we hit road bumps or whatever. There is no clear path in this industry for going from unknown artist to global superstar.
Yeah.
A lot of it is chance and timing.
And especially today with the way that people can utilize social media to find people. It is sometimes chance that all of a sudden your artist puts up something on a TikTok one day. Next thing you know, it's viral.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
You don't know. And you could think that you have like the most incredible song and the most incredible moment, and we have literally every single piece made in this pie ready to bake. And then when you take it out of the oven, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But there's no reason that it should be terrible. It doesn't make any sense. Why didn't this work? And you just have to pick yourself up and get right back at it and move on and do it all over again.
And that's what's cool about you having Narvel as a mentor, is that NB has been, he's done it, like you said, for 40 plus years or whatever it is. You know, it's like you said, he's been doing it longer than you're alive. And so by him knowing how to make so many different cakes too, he knows the exact ingredients that can get you close. But like you said, each artist is different, with a different beast behind their fan base, behind their reach, behind whatever it may be. And so all he can do is give you the knowledge and say, well, I've done this with this before, and it's worked up until the point that I don't know what lands next, you know?
Right. And it's amazing because he will give me like examples and advice and things like that. But then where he takes it a step farther, he'll ask me, what do you think?
Which is awesome.
How do you want to approach this situation? And not just with the clients that I'm day to day on that are part of our like artist development, but he'll ask me things like that with like Blake, like, well, what do you think of this situation?
Yeah.
And being valued like that by your boss and by someone that you look up to is such a game changer. And that's one of the things with when I have had assistants and interns and when I've hired people and stuff like that, and even just working with my coworkers, that's the type of leader that I really strive to be. Somebody who is a team player in the sense of like, I know that I don't know everything. And I know that I'm not always the smartest person in the room. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room all the time, because then everything falls onto you. You know, the key is to work with the people around you to come up with the best solution for the people that you represent, because that's our job. Like I said, we have to make sure that everything is coming together to make our artists shine the brightest. And you can't let ego and stuff like that get in the way of that, because then you've lost no matter what.
No, I mean, it's very true. And when Narvel is doing his job, he's not only just thinking about Blake, he's thinking about those doors, those front doors.
Exactly. I mean, the responsibility on his shoulders, like he has 20 people or something on his payroll, but that he is responsible for making sure that they make enough money to feed themselves and their families.
He has more than that, because not only that, but think about Blake's payroll. Think about, I mean, there's a lot to this. And so, you know, Elon Musk was talking about this. You know, he was on Joe Rogan and they were like going back and forth about how busy he was. And Joe's like, I just don't understand how you do it all. You're building this, you're building that. And he's like, well, I have a team, you know, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And
you have to trust the people that you hire to do their job. Yeah, you've hired them.
Am I involved in a lot of steps? Sure. But at a certain point, he's not in there drawing every single schematic for his rockets to go to space. Right. Which is in a way the same with NB. You know, he's yes, he might oversee whatever you're doing, but he has to have that faith and trust in the fact that you're going to show up. I mean, he shows up on days, like the holidays. You have to remind him, like, hey, tomorrow's a holiday.
Yeah, like, I mean, we're not going to, I know you're going to be here, but we're not going to be here.
But that's because that's that drive in his brain, though, and in his heart to make sure that everyone's even though that might not be what got him out of his bed, it's still there deep down, and I think those are those people that are awesome mentors. And I think it's amazing that you've stayed there, that you've put yourself out there. Are you the top manager in Nashville? No. But you are working for a top manager in Nashville on a very, like you're right there with him when decisions are made, which to me is the coolest thing, is that you're a part of it. It's like, title aside, everything aside, that right there, you have made it.
Absolutely. It's like we said earlier, there's always room to grow. I have so much more to learn and so much more to do in my career. And, the goal is to one day be Narvel.
Yeah.
But it takes years and years and years and years of experience and practice and learning things the hard way and failing and not being afraid to fail. And that's definitely something that I've had to learn, especially when working with artists of any level in their career.
100%.
You may think as a team, this is the song. This is the one that is going to break this artist wide open.
We've made it. We figured it out.
Everything is going to happen. And it really could be a phenomenal song. Oh, more often than not,
it's a great song.
You've got some incredible piece of music. But there's thousands of incredible pieces of music out there, and it's got to be released at the right time by the right people with the right plan, and sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that can be a hard pill to swallow when you've poured countless hours and emotions and everything into something like that. And even though I may not have written the song and I might not be performing the song, it's just as devastating for me as it is for the artist, because I want it as badly as they do, because I'm responsible for them.
100%.
That is a hard thing to shoulder, is when something doesn't happen for an artist. And you've done everything in your power to make it happen. And it's not like it's anybody's fault.
No.
But it just didn't work. And your artist, who has basically become like one of your best friends / your child, basically.
That's really what it is.
Your heart breaks for them because they are heartbroken.
Yeah.
And that happened with one of the artists I represent, who I've become very close with.
Yeah.
He went through a terrible time last year. And it was a situation that Narvel and I had never been in before. Either one of us. We were both like, I don't even know what to do in this situation. Like, we had everything ready to go to launch and to really, really make an impact. And then the bottom just fell out.
Yeah.
And we had to completely start from scratch. And we're still figuring all of that out together. It guts your artist and it guts you. It's hard on everybody. But then you, as the manager, have the responsibility to motivate them to pick up the pieces and start over again.
Yeah.
Because this is your dream. And if you want this dream to happen, no matter how many times we fall down, we have to get back up and keep climbing.
You hit that right, like, perfect. You have to. If you want to make it, you have to pick yourself up.
And sometimes that ends up resulting in a tough conversation as a manager, where if the artist is just, no, they're not in that mindset anymore.
No.
And sometimes it's a conversation of, we as your managers have done everything that we can possibly think of to help you get to where you want to be. It's not working.
Yeah.
We may not be the right people to do this with you. And letting them go and letting them work with a different manager, or maybe they decide, you know what, I'm done. This isn't for me anymore. I'm going to go do whatever else it is that they're passionate about and throw in the towel because it's not meant for everybody.
You know what's funny about your story is that a lot of times you hear these like grand stories of people making it, and a lot of times they never had a plan B. You know, it's like you did have a plan B, but I think your plan B wasn't really a plan B.
It was to make plan A happen. I guess.
I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that you were just destined to be in this industry. I think I don't know if I have the terms right, but I'm just going to say this. Your plan B was your plan A. And I think that though you thought that music, singing was going to be it, I think that you just have such a big heart that you took it, and now your plan A is really always been to be in music, and now you're here. And now you get to make an imprint in a different way. But I think it's more like a bigger impact than it would be if you were a songwriter in a metal band. You know, not to say that you couldn't have,
agree.
But I think that what you're doing right now is such a bigger deal for people because of exactly what you said. Your passion and your love for music really gets to give people that second bit of wind that they may need after a catastrophe. And it is a lot of times in this business, I think you're met with catastrophe because you pour your heart and soul into it, and then you get told no.
Yeah.
And being a manager, I got nothing but giant props to you, all, NB, BB, all of them.
All the bees.
All the bees. and Starstruck, because, I've seen you go through some really, really hard stuff, and it's amazing that you're continually pick yourself up every day or every time something bad happens, and you just go back in and you shrug it off and go.
Well, thank you, first of all, for that. And I actually just had a thought, kind of like another full circle, like realization type of moment. The only thing I ever wanted more than to be in music was to be a mom. And thankfully, by the grace of God, you have given me that opportunity to be a mom to our one and soon to be 2 children,
and
who
practicing.
knows, however many more. Yes, of course it was. However, that is before I met you, and we got married eventually, and now are having kids and raising our own little family. Being a manager for me, and this isn't for everybody, but for me, prior to us having kids and even now, it also gave me the opportunity to be a mom in a way to these artists.
True.
Because nurturing them and being responsible for them is a very important part of being their manager and of being involved in helping to make their dreams come true, or to get as close as possible as you can to whatever those dreams may be. And a lot of times as a parent, we're learning now, that's not always reciprocated.
Yeah.
Like your kids need you, but eventually they get to a point where they don't really need you nearly as much, or they may not realize how much they need you. That relationship a lot of times is a one-way street, and it's the same in management. I definitely do pour a lot of my heart into my career and into the artists that I work with. And sometimes that's not reciprocated, or it's not appreciated as much as you wish that it would be. And that's just one thing that you have to learn as a parent and as a manager, is that, like, that's not what it's about.
No.
And that's not why you do it.
Nope.
And I think that's why I keep going back and doing it.
Yeah.
Is because
the journey.
Of the journey and not the end result. And because I feel a great responsibility to the people that I care for, so to speak, in both work and personal life, to where
I love that.
No matter what, you have to show up for them.
I love it.
And so that's why I do it.
That's beautiful.
And that's why I love to do it.
And I think that's why you're continually moving up in this management game. You know, and that journey, like you said, I think it was like Kobe or one of those really greats who talked about that. You know, it's not about getting to you can climb the ladder. What are you going to do when you get there? You still have a place to go.
Yeah. There's always more rungs to climb. Always.
So it's the journey that's the fun part.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the journey's hard, even though it's tiresome and annoying and all the things it can be, but it can also be rewarding, amazing.
Yeah.
Loving, caring, fun, all, you know, has everything.
Absolutely.
If you treat it that way. Because you can treat it, you know, you can treat it just for the good.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll miss out on all the bad.
Exactly. And the bad makes you really appreciate the good.
Well, it gives you that experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you getting thrown into your festivals and everything.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed listening to this, and I don't think that there's more to be said, not because I don't think you have more, because every day you come home and you tell me something cool. But I think that's the part of it, though, is that you are at a place in your career where you are a manager, you are a day-to-day, you still are an assistant at times.
Mm-hmm.
You hold all these things because NB still holds all those things.
Right.
You know, like when he goes to a show with Blake and he's backstage, he has to play many roles still.
For sure.
He's not just Blake's manager that's only going to stand there and do absolutely nothing. If Blake asks him to do something, he's going to play assistant for a quick second.
Exactly.
And I think that that's the coolest thing to watch you and him interact when I've gotten to go to these shows, when I've gotten to be backstage with you guys. Thank you, by the way, because some of my funnest memories are...
I've loved having you there.
Funnestest memories. But I think that that's the point, though, is that your career, though you have been in it for a long time, is just starting.
100%. I still have so far to go.
And it's so fun to have this conversation because, yeah, when we say it, we're like, oh, and when I write these things online, it's like, and she's at the top. You are, but you're not.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing. And so, you know, I know that you're my manager.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And so leaving this as that is now we get to work together in a very cool and loving, and you tell me things that I don't want to hear sometimes, and I get frustrated and I'm like, ugh. Mm-hmm. But it's because you've been there, and it's because you've seen it work with other people, or you've seen it not work with other people, that makes you so special.
Well, thank you.
So all I can say is, you know, big applause to you in your journey. Though I was attracted to the girl that worked 18 hours a day and just left me alone on the road and never worried about texting me, because you were just as busy. So yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect.
I'm free.
I can do whatever I want. And I did, which was the whole other side.
Story. Yeah, we'll get there one day.
But I just have to say, I'm glad that you've evolved too from that girl into knowing your limits, knowing where to turn it on, when to turn it on, when to turn it off, and I think one of the coolest things I think NB has shown you is also how to say no.
Yeah, boundaries are important. They allow you to grow and to function at your possible highest, because your career or whatever you're focused on can't be your everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's funny is I think, and I know we got to probably slowly wrap this up, but saying no to big ticket items is probably one of the craziest things you've ever seen done. But the payout on the other side, when that big ticket item goes away and something even bigger pops up, you're like, you're like, how are we saying no to this?
Yeah, or just valuing your time.
Well, there it is I think that's one of the biggest things that you've been shown. And I think when you come home now, it's you are a manager in that mindset, which is you know, again, applause to you, or applause.
Thank you.
Golf clap.
Golf claps.
Well, anything else you want to say? We got a few more minutes.
I don't think so. I feel... there's obviously like so much more detail and things that happened and more to the story and all of that kind of stuff. But I think we've touched on the major points. And, I think just to anybody listening, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and I will answer them to the best of my ability. But if you want to work in this business, there's no clear-cut path. Being passionate and driven is definitely the most important skill that you're going to need. And outside of that, being humble is the other one.
Mm-hmm. Like Gary Vee says, humbled up.
Humbled up. Yep. 100%.
All right. Well, thanks for the journey. Thanks for the ride.
Thanks for listening.
Was pretty good. Pretty good.
Your little nugget is kicking me like crazy in here.
That a girl.
Mm-hmm. She going wild.
She hungry. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into these 4 amazing episodes. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, as time goes forward, we'll bring you more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, like you said, there's just so many funny little stories. But I think getting the big chunk out of it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thank 100%. You, BK, for sharing your wild journey.
Thanks, BK. And we'll see you guys.
Don't forget to go and check out our awesome show sponsors, Ink Vanity, BetterHelp. If you need some roofing or some renovation in Texas, hit up our boys. Level Up.
Yep.
And cheers.
Earthworks Audio for amazing microphones.
Oh my gosh, these things are amazing.
I know, I love them.
They sound so good.
So good.
So good. Mm-hmm. If anybody has any good headphone recommendations, hit us up.
Yeah.
If not, peace, cheers, and bottoms up.
Bye, everybody.
Doing. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.